Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of I Came for Science, a show about sex and reproduction and inclusion in STEM. I'm your host, Laura Surratt. I'm a professor of biology, and I've been studying animal sex for the past 30 years. Please join me as we normalize talking about sex and what we know about it, as well as the journeys of the scientists who study it. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Maureen Pollack, who is a multifaceted woman and a mompreneur that is both a mother and the co-founder of the company called Lovability, as well as the inventor of the WaterSlyde, which is a revolutionary device for female pleasure. She's also an elected public official. Welcome, Maureen. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So for those in our audience who may not be familiar, can you introduce us to Lovability and the WaterSlyde?
You got it. Lovability is a company where we found that women were underrepresented in the sexual health space, and we make things for women by women, and it is body safe and eco-friendly sexual health products. First and foremost, that's our product line, but we welcome this space to grow and unlearn some of the behaviors that we've learned and been told about our sexuality. So that's a nutshell of our brand. And we like to do things in a fun way and not raunchy. So we have fun with women's sexuality. I invented the WaterSlyde actually back when I was 15. In a nutshell, it uses water to stimulate you and clean you, but allowing it so a woman doesn't have to scoot underneath her bathtub faucet. And I could dive into it if you'd like, but that's the nutshell.
Yeah, dive into it.
So I came up with the WaterSlyde concept when I was 15, and it was during a beautiful accident in the bathtub. So I went to go sit up and I grabbed the faucet and the faucet popped off. And imagine you're 15 and your hormones are raging and you can't buy sex toys, but it's really difficult to stimulate yourself just manually, or at least it was for me. So I had this eureka moment with the water shooting out of the wall, not like the faucet where it goes down, but the water came shooting out and it landed somewhere else. My father fixed the faucet and I tried everything to emulate that experience, scooting under the faucet, using the shower head, and it was great. Everything felt well, but it wasn't like laying there comfortably in your tub and just letting the water work its magic. Fast forward 15 years, I became an intimacy coach. I tried every sex toy there was on the market. And again, I love pleasure. I love sex toys, but nothing was like that experience. And after meeting with a lot of my clients and OBGYNs and talking about vibration or penetration or flickering or air pulse technology, I kept recommending, hey, just try scooting under your faucet or using your shower head. And it kept coming back to, okay, but it's uncomfortable, it's awkward. I'm like, well, maybe just create a water diverter that would bring the water to you, like my 15-year-old experience. And my OBGYN said to me, Maureen, you have to make this. You do realize, A, for people who have disability, for women who can't really scoot under the faucet, whether it's the size of their body or other reasons. And I said, you know what? Why not? I looked up the patents. There was nothing out there on the market like it. And I gave it a shot and made the WaterSlyde.
I was wondering if you could talk about kind of the creative process of creating the right shape, the right size. What was the science involved with figuring out the design of the WaterSlyde?
Starting with prototyping, when you come up with an idea, first it's always like, hey, is this out there? Like maybe somebody else has done it. You always hear, oh, it's already out there. Check. Google has a patent search. So you could do Google patent search and look for things. I didn't find it. So then I went to a patent attorney and I said, hey, I'm looking to create a water diverter for pleasure. Is there anything on the market? And they did a preliminary search and came back to me and said, no, you have the green light. So I filed immediately for a provisional patent, which means you have 1 year you're almost like submitting your rough draft. And that gives you it's inexpensive. It gives you a year to see if you're going to run with your idea and work out your kinks, come up with your drawings, come up with your final product. And that protects you. So if you go to factories and you speak to injection molding companies, designers, you're essentially the first one in line to file for the patent. That's what a provisional patent is. Then I had the fun of trying to create, like you could picture in your head, taking cardboard, I'm taking PVC pipes.
PVC is where my mind goes. Yes.
I used a pool noodle. I first actually tried to do something that encompassed the faucet so it'd shoot the water out.
Okay.
Real quickly, a plumber was like, no, you can't do that because behind the valve in your faucet is like this valve that if there's water that goes backwards, it stops it. But not all bathtubs have it. Last thing you want is the liability of the water shooting backwards into your
Right.
wall and flooding a house.
That's
So
good thinking. Yeah.
just asking everybody you know, a lot of people want to keep their idea secret. That's what the provisional patent does, allows you to have a collective mind. I asked everybody I knew. I didn't think that I knew everything, which then led me to a really good friend at our dinner table who is proficient with 3D printing. And I said, here's my drawing from my findings. This is what I see works and doesn't work. An open chute that sits at the bottom of your faucet and has a strap that comes over to hold it in place, and then a long slide that brings the water out to land midline of the tub. He, in about an hour, sat with me and drew it out, and we sent the 3D CAD file. So yes, guys, take notes. 3D printing is phenomenal for prototyping.
Yes.
It was great. And we sent the file into a company called Shapeways. And Shapeways, you just upload your 3D CAD file and they print it really nice. I still have it somewhere. It's my I love it.
Prototype.
My prototype that I have sitting out, and they shipped it to me. I got it in the mail, locked myself in the bathroom, and did some research and found that it was fantastic. I had a eureka moment again where I'm laying in the tub, not to give too much detail, but let's just say I opened my eyes and was like, I'm going to change the world and I'm going to make every woman happy. Was my like moment where I was just sitting there,
Right.
visual in my head. And I realized I still had to scoot a little bit.
Mhm.
So I added 3 inches to the design and I then had a working prototype. From there, I went back to my OBGYN and I said, I have a prototype. Do you think you have anybody you know where we could test it? I want a little bit of market research. So because the WaterSlyde doesn't touch your body, it's essentially like saying, I'm going to share my faucet or I'm going to share something with people. I put it in a box and it had a self-addressed envelope on the box so they could send it back to me. And then it had 5 questions of what do you think the purpose of? All it said was, this is called a WaterSlyde. You attach it to your bathtub faucet. It's for women. And then the questions were like, please tell me what you think. I didn't want to lead anybody. How much would you pay for it? Rate it, that type of stuff. Every single one of the women wrote back, they got it. They're intuitive. That's again later to follow with marketing. I didn't have to explain it to a woman. I just had to put it on your faucet. It's for women. Enjoy. So then I sat down with that question of, all right, how much am I going to have to invest in starting a company? It's scary. I'm a mompreneur, a stay-at-home mom and intimacy coach working on the side. And I sat down and I ran the numbers of if I was to do one run and it was by a mold, I went with an aluminum mold as opposed to a steel mold for injection molding. And a steel mold is the right way to do it, but that's like $30,000. And an aluminum mold was around $10,000 at the time. And I could inject with, and I wouldn't compromise. I wanted medical grade, body safe injection molding plastic, which upped the price. But hey, there's warm water running over your vulva. I am pretty strict with what chemicals go in or around my body. So it came out to around $15,000. I gave myself 1 year because of the provisional patent, $15,000, and with a website and a packaging, and I just put out into the world the WaterSlyde. And I said, I'm never going to invest or do personal liability, any of that stuff. Everything is with the first $15,000. Fast forward, gosh, that was 2012 when I drew it out to now. And it's been nominated for 3 awards. It's been in famous people's hands. It's gone viral on TikTok, multiple views of like 35 million views.
Oh my gosh.
Here with how many different types of women with vulva or people with vulva are enjoying it, from porn stars to grandmothers to doctors.
That's awesome. That is so great. What a wonderful story. How did you come up with the name WaterSlyde?
I would love to take credit for how I came up with the name WaterSlyde. It was during the process when I was getting the website, the domain name, I had my prototype, and we were sitting there at my dinner table, and my 6-year-old son at the time was going to take a bath in his little cute, feet pitter-pattering around, and he just leans around the corner and he goes, hey mom, where's that WaterSlyde thing? Batman wants to go down it in the bathtub.
Oh my God.
Going to take a bath, and because it's not a giant dildo or anything, I left it out. And I guess he's been playing with it in
Oh
the
my
bath
God.
at
That
times.
is
So
hilarious.
a name for it. I came up with waterfall, all these things, and having a 6-year-old go, "Where's that water slide
Water
thingy?
slide.
That
Yes.
man wants to play with it." I'm like, uh-huh. And I said,
That's what's
let's go.
called.
I could get the domain name WaterSlyde.com. And that's why I changed it to the Y, because if I did water slide, I would be
People would
complete
never find it. Yes.
slide in the world.
Yes. Are there any people it hasn't worked so well for? Like people who say it doesn't work for my body?
Absolutely. Oh
Yeah.
gosh. Could you imagine if I was like every single woman, every single person loved it? So part of the unlearning process, I have had some people who have returned it because I do have a satisfaction, wink, wink guarantee, and they've returned it. It doesn't fit their faucet. So I designed it to be a forward facing faucet. And if you have a side spout, some corner faucets work. Mine right now is corner and I could still maneuver in front of it. That's one. But for people who don't think it feels good for them, I would still say the mass majority are like, whoa, eyes open. This is a new experience. It's great. There's two types. There's one that says it's not strong enough. They see the videos and they just immediately dismiss it and say, I need high pressure. I need the shower head. That's totally fine. Every body, instead of everybody, every body is different. And some like things hard and rough, but I don't know if everybody who said that has tried it. So I usually will write to people and say, have you tried it? Did you experience that? And you might want to give it a minute. So we get used to our sensations. I have, gosh, maybe like 45 toys right now in my treasure chest. I do have my favorites that I go to, and sometimes I want real hard, fast vibration, just a quickie is what I call it. But the water slide is a duller sensation and it's for a larger buildup, which then equates to a bigger orgasm. So if people are just used to vibration and then they feel water for the first time, they might not give it more than 10 seconds. So I have written back and I communicate with some women and I say, hey, totally feel you. If you're not into it, send it back, no problem. But I challenge you. Let the water trickle on you, change the temperature, try turning it up, turning it lower, and find what your body likes. It's about learning what you like. And I say, give it 2 minutes. And if you still feel nothing or you're not into it, you know your body better than I do or anybody else. And large percentage of the time, those women come back to me and they're like, I didn't know. I didn't know. And I'm like, great. This is what it's for. It's to explore. There's definitely people who are like, not for me. And I'm like, great, no problem.
What have you learned about female arousal from doing this work that you didn't know before, like some of the unlearning or the new learning that you've done?
It's hard to separate from this process versus learning intimacy coaching. At which point did I learn something? But it's confirmed that women, we definitely take a little bit longer to get fully aroused and we need to stay aroused. That's one thing. And also, anybody who struggled having orgasms or multiple orgasms, it can be one of two things or more things, but the ones that I've seen the most are if you're on SSRIs. I didn't realize how many women who take antidepressants have a very difficult time orgasming until I'm seeing it all the time in people writing in. That doesn't mean I'm bashing SSRIs or antidepressants. It means that's more information for you to discuss with your doctor, pros and cons of what you're taking. But for the most part, I remember learning in Psychology of Human Sexuality that it takes on average 20 minutes for a woman to be fully aroused. Forgive me, anybody who's listening with my language, I'm trying to remind myself to say vulva owners as opposed to just women, but vulva owners 20 minutes to become fully aroused. And I learned that in a penis, there's a valve. When the blood flows in for arousal, the valve helps with not having backflow of the blood. But vulva owners don't have that. So we have to have continuous stimulation, and it's not just physical, it's emotional, it's mental. So for 20 minutes to get the whole vulva aroused, and if it's fully aroused, it's more pleasure for us. So and then if we have our first orgasm, we're likely to have more orgasms.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about the fact that the male engorgement kind of has a mechanism for staying engorged, but that the female body doesn't. or the vulva owning body doesn't. Yeah. Yours is the first sex toy that's using water for arousal and stimulation. Is that correct?
So I thought so. Yeah. I found out afterwards that women have been using water for a long, long time before vibrators, using hoses. I
Right.
think there was a blog a long time ago that I wrote because I found that, gosh, 200 years ago, they were using hoses. And through this, I met a wonderful woman named Kim Ayers, who was one of the first sex toy store owners in Boston. She went from Harvard to dildos. It was really funny. She told me that she actually created a while ago something called Bubble Love, and it didn't work out for mechanical reasons, but it was a suction cup that went in the bottom of your bathtub to shoot a jet of water while you're in the tub, almost like emulating a jacuzzi experience, but designed to sit between your legs. And hers was called Bubble Love. So she was like, she's the OG. I love her. And she was like, oh my goodness, it's as simple as a water slide. It's as simple as letting gravity do it. I'm like, yeah, there's no mechanical parts, there's no bells and whistles. We just let nature work its magic. And then I did find out that there was another, maybe 10 years before me, somebody created something called Angel Falls. And it was like a washcloth that looked like angel wings that went over your shower head. So somebody could lay in their shower and let the water drip off. Because I guess some people put a washcloth over the top of their shower head. But again, these use water for stimulation. There's many different ways. We have the jacuzzi, the pool, the shower head. I just wanted to emulate the bathtub technique where instead of scooting underneath the bathtub faucet and putting your legs up on the wall and doing bathtub yoga, I wanted to solve the problem of hands-free water pleasure in the bathtub.
So tell me more about the sexual wellness industry and what it was like when you entered it. Did you feel stigmatized? Yeah, kind of what was that experience like of entering that industry?
We've come a long way. When I entered the space, I found that it was either super clinical. You had, your KYs or the things that you see at the grocery store, which were packed with chemicals. Everything from condoms to lubricants, everything was chemicals, 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 chemicals. Then if you went to the adult store, again, chemicals, but then you had pornographic images. It was like what people picture in their head as the adult industry. Again, I have zero issues with the adult industry, but I felt that there were people that were left out of the space that either didn't want the clinical stuff or the real fun things or kind of novelty items. So I wanted to create something that was what I would buy, what I would want. I'm adventurous. I have no problem going into every sex toy and walking through, but I know that there's so many people who, especially women, who didn't feel safe or didn't feel comfortable. And I'm proud to say, fast forward, I've gotten to know a lot of sex toy store owners, and there's really beautiful ones out there. But most people don't even give them a chance by going in. And they're fantastic. They'll answer all your questions. It's a non-judgmental place. It's no longer like back in the days where you wear a trench coat and a hat and glasses and go in and you're creeped out by the people. It's such a beautiful, welcoming space.
That's awesome.
But in terms of the stigma, I'll be honest with you, that was my biggest hurdle in this whole entire process. I thought I had a great idea. I researched the money. I was like, okay, I could give it a shot and be safe if I fail. It was the idea that my children and my family would be judged and I would have a scarlet letter on my house and the social implications. I was terrified. Forget my imposter syndrome, like I can't do this. I was terrified. And then I went to my rabbi. My OBGYN doctor is telling me to make something that's going to help women. This is a great idea, but the social stigma. He goes, there's nothing wrong with female
Wow.
pleasure. Yeah, they're like, well, it brings people together. It makes women feel good. And he gave me some guidance as to how I market it. He's like, listen, the parts where you might run into trouble are if you talk about your personal experience or you create something that separates and takes intimacy away, which you're not doing. And he gave me a really good tip. He goes, listen, you're going to be presented in situations where you might want to compromise your moral values. And just remember where you started. And then he told me, the end of the day, remind yourself that you're helping women and do it with those lenses on. And that's what I've done through all my branding, all my marketing. And I found that the sex, adult space is the most accepting place in the world. they accepted me and my funny vanilla branding. And then the people who are left out of the other equation get it. And they understand they don't need explicit pictures to be able to find something. And I'm noticing now the industry has become way more modest and fun and beautiful.
So, as we mentioned at the beginning, you also are an elected public official. So, thank you for your service. And I was
My
wondering, how do these two worlds kind of overlap or connect or intersect with each other?
Thanks. Well, I've become on the city council in Stamford, which is called the Board of Reps. And at the end of the day, I guess I just fight for what I believe in. And I have been able to, I almost would say that my sexual health and my entrepreneurship is what got me to be an elected official. I wasn't planning on becoming a politician. I can safely say that I loathed politics. I'm one of those women who was like, I hate politics. I don't trust politics. And I was playing tennis with a woman who was going to be on the DCC, which is a Democratic City Committee. And we were playing an awesome tennis match. And I'm very chill. I'm very laid back. I don't let things bother me. And we played, and she was like, "How do you keep your cool?" And I'm like, "It's just tennis. Everything I do is like, it's just this." And she found out what I do for a living. She goes, "That's fascinating. I'm so impressed. I'm so proud of you. How do you, just like you asked, like, how do you navigate that social stigma? And you're an active member in the Jewish community. You're a mom, like you don't present in what people think and you're challenging." I said, because I believe in it. I don't believe that there needs to be a stigma. I don't care if somebody's a sex worker. I don't care. You don't shame the men who utilize. Why are we shaming the women who are doing it and choosing to do it? So she was like, "Maureen, this is fascinating." She goes, "You should be in politics." And I said, "No, I hate politics." A week later, she came to me and she said, "Listen, there is a district rep in your district who has been self-nominating for 40 years. And, it's time for somebody to take over. And anybody who's challenged him, there's smear campaigns, people get nervous. Like he has a lot of people who support him and behind him. But I said, I have experience. I've spoken out against some of the things that he wasn't representing me and my voice as a woman and walkable issues, different issues. He wasn't representing what I wanted." So she said, "Okay, can you at least consider running? It's only this amount of commitment. If you win, we'll go from there." But I'm like, why not? Like, just like tennis, like, it's just running. It's just campaigning.
Running
It's
for
just an
office, that's
election.
all. Yeah.
I was like, if I lose, I have got nothing to lose. I don't care. And I'm not worried about him coming after me because I do everything in the public eye anyway. So we did have a meeting where some people, they were women, who were like, "Let's go through your campaign. Maureen, is there any way we could remove the word sexual from any of your like social media, from your website? We'll just talk about women's health." And I was like, "Absolutely not." I was like, "That's what I fight for, is destigmatizing women's sexual health. So why would I remove sexual to compromise and be like, oh, now I want to be a politician?" I said, "In fact, if somebody's going to elect me and vote for me, they should know exactly who I am. And if they're not ready for me, then I won't get elected." And so I said, I want sexual health to be the very first line in my bio, everything I'm doing, my campaign materials. I want people to know who they're voting for. And I'm so proud to say, the biggest voter turnout.
Oh,
I
wow.
All the women came
Fantastic.
out. What they were afraid of had the opposite effect. They're like, "Oh my goodness, like your transparency, it worked." I'm like,
Wow.
"Yes, we're
That's
ready for it."
awesome. We're ready.
Now I've seen also, now that they intersect, no, I didn't resign. I absolutely love it, which makes me wonder if I'm absolutely crazy because I love it. I love helping people. One of my favorite initiatives that I did in this term was I found out that high school students went up to the state level and got put in a budget for menstrual products in government buildings. It
Outstanding.
It was
Yes.
buried on page 182.
Oh,
All of them are there. And anybody knows anything about politics, like you might get something approved, but then implementing it is the issue. So I found out that these students did it. And I said, well, we're going to have a review item. Called up the superintendent, said, want to give you plenty of heads up. This budget, there's money allocated for menstrual products. And I don't want to sideline you, but I'm going to put on a review item so you can show the city your beautiful plans to implement. And sure enough, made sure it happened. And now we have free menstrual product in all the city schools. And next step is all the rest of the government buildings.
wow. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Hey, the high
Amazing.
school,
So important.
I just
Yes.
carried the baton and helped with the process.
That's great. So, what haven't I asked that you'd like to talk about?
Oh no, I guess I could ask you a question about what you do.
Sure.
Can you explain to me what types of studies do you do with sexual health?
Mostly, I work on how males and females influence each other's reproductive success. And
Mm.
I've done that in a number of different species. So, my first work was with monkeys. My undergraduate thesis was on the relationship between females' preferences for mating with certain males and how able they were to consummate their preferences, basically. Like, that was my very first study, was following around sexually receptive female monkeys. And ever since then, I've been kind of obsessed with the sex lives of animals. And then I switched to insects during grad school. So I started studying these amazing damselflies where there's females that look like males in coloration patterns and other females who look more like your typical female damselflies. This is a very long answer to your question, but then I started studying beetles. And in these beetles, it was a beetle that the USDA, Department of Agriculture, was really interested in. And I was studying of all the males that a female mates with, what determines whose sperm she uses, because she's able to store sperm from multiple males.
So you could store multiple and they're separated. It's not like all the sperm gets pooled in
Yeah,
there.
so that's the question. That's like a whole other episode. That would be interesting. But yeah, so depending on the structure of our sperm storage organs, there are mechanisms to keep them separate. Sometimes, like in the mosquitoes I study now, females have 3 different sperm storage organs. There's not much evidence that they're keeping them like structurally separated, spatially separated, but there is evidence that there's female control over like whether the female keeps the sperm that a male ejaculates and whether she uses the sperm later. Yeah.
That is so valuable. I
Yes.
wish we had
And
that.
wait, you're going to like this part the most, which is the only predictor. I measured lots of things about the male, and the only predictor of whether a female used one male sperm over another was how much the male stroked the female during mating.
That's right. You heard it
That's
here
right.
first.
And Maureen, if people want to find out more about lovability in the WaterSlyde, where should they go?
Well, our website, our company is Lovability, which is LOVABILITY Inc.com. And most of our social handles are at Lovability Inc. And the WaterSlyde is what's on TikTok. And that's at the WaterSlyde. And that's WaterSlyde. And you could message on there, send emails in. You could always find me that way, but let's have some fun together.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate all your insights, all your work. I'm sure a lot of people appreciate your work, and maybe even more will after listening to this show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everything you're doing as well. I would love to stay in touch. I would love to continue these conversations.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks. And thank you all for listening. Thanks also to our production team, Isabel Espinoza, Lane Patton, and Daphne Trilliana. The music used in this episode is from I Don't Smoke by the Mythical Score Society.